All right, let's talk about one of the most famous city names on the planet. We're going to peel back thousands of years of history to figure out what the name Paris really means.
Paris. I mean, just say the word.
You say it and immediately a whole world just kind of pops into your head, right? It's a word that practically sounds like beauty, a name that feels like a promise of something, well, magical.
But what if that whole image is, well, basically a lie? What if the name Paris has absolutely nothing to do with any of that stuff? What if it's actually rooted in something way older, something tied to power, maybe even fear, and a people who've been totally forgotten?
You see, long before the cathedrals, before the kings, heck, before France was even a thing, the little settlement on the River Seine already had a name. And digging into its true meaning, well, that takes us to a world that has almost completely vanished.
Okay, so when the Romans marched in and conquered this part of Gaul, they wrote down the city's name, Lutetia Parisiorum. But here's the key thing. Rome didn't invent the name Paris. Nope, they inherited it. And hidden right there, inside that official Roman name, is the clue we're looking for. See it? Parisiorum?
So, what does that mean? Well, that word, Parisirium, it refers to a people, a tribe that was living right here, long before the first Roman legions ever showed up. They were called the Parisii. And what happened next is like this historical tug of war. You've got two names fighting it out. Over the centuries, the Roman part, Lutetia, it just fizzled out. People forgot it. But the other part, the tribal name, the name of the people who were conquered, that is what survived. It didn't just survive, it won. It became dominant. It became Paris.
So you gotta ask, who were these people? Who were the Parisii whose name was so powerful it literally outlasted an entire empire? Well, we know they were a Celtic tribe, settled along the Seine. But here's the problem. They left us nothing. No written records, no stories to tell us who they were. All we have are the bits and pieces they left behind in the river mud. You know, coins, weapons that were bent on purpose, the ruins of old wooden bridges, that, and their name. So the big question remains, what did that name actually mean?
Okay, this is where we have to put on our detective hats, because there are two major theories about what their name meant, and honestly, they point in totally different directions. One is all about practical, real-world power. The other, it's about something much older and a lot more mysterious.
So, theory number one ties the name to Celtic roots. It suggests it meant something like those who command the river. You know, a name all about function, about control. But then you have theory number two, which digs way, way deeper, into languages that are completely extinct now. And this one suggests the name is all about sacred authority, maybe a ruling class of priests or ritual leaders, possibly even tied to sacrifice.
And really, at the heart of both of these ideas is the river itself. You have to understand, the Seine wasn't just some pretty backdrop, it was everything. It was life and death. It was a source of food, but also a dangerous force. To master this river, you'd need both incredible practical strength and maybe, just maybe, some kind of spiritual power. Both theories are totally anchored in the reality of this vital, dangerous waterway.
But this story gets even more wild when you realize just how tough this name was. I mean, it didn't just survive, it flat out conquered every single attempt to erase it or replace it over the centuries.
Just look at this timeline. It shows you exactly how resilient this name was. So first, for centuries, the Parisii are in charge. Then, bam, Rome shows up and tries to rebrand the city. But fast forward a few hundred years to the late Roman Empire, and Lutetia is totally gone. Everyone's just calling the city Paris. The conqueror's name just vanished, but the original stuck around. Then, things get even weirder in the Middle Ages when people invent this completely fake origin story to connect the city to the hero from the Trojan War, Paris.
So, why? Why make up a whole new story? Well, it's because the real one, whichever version you lean towards, was tied to a pre-Christian pagan world, a world of river rituals and forgotten gods. And for the new Christian kingdom of France, that origin story was awkward, inconvenient, maybe even a little bit dangerous. It was just so much easier to invent a noble, heroic myth than to deal with the dark, ancient truth.
I want you to really think about the weight of that statement. The capital city's name is older than the country itself. This wasn't a name handed down by a king or a government. It's a name that grew right out of the land, out of the river. A name so powerful that, in the end, it gave its identity to the entire nation that grew up around it.
Okay, so after all that, what's the real truth here?
when we strip away all the myths, all the romance, what does the name Paris actually represent?
To really get it, we need to borrow a cool concept from linguistics. It's called a fossil word. Think about it. Just like a fossil in a rock, it's a word that perfectly preserves a tiny piece of a world that's been extinct for ages. The culture that made it is gone, the original meaning is forgotten, but the word itself survives, carrying this ancient historical DNA.
And that right there is the final revelation. The name Paris isn't just a symbol of romance and light. It's a fossil word. It's this one single surviving piece of a lost Gallic world, carrying the echoes of vanished languages, of rituals in the river, of forgotten rulers.
So in the end, it almost doesn't matter if the Parisii were commanders of the river or sacred leaders, because either way, the name points to the exact same truth. It belongs to a tough, defiant people who built their entire world on a dangerous, powerful river, and who simply refused to be erased, not by the river and not by the empires that came after.